Guys, I went viral and so many people hated the way that I bench, but that's fine. I kind of expected it. I know it's not for everyone. It was really nice to see though that there were a lot of frequently asked questions from people who genuinely want to learn and understand the powerlifting bench press. So that's what this video is about. Hello and welcome if you want to have the answers to those questions. The first question that came up the most is probably, why are you doing that? So there's actually a lot of reasons why we do this. The first one is the most obvious one. We are reducing range of motion. In powerlifting, the aim is to move as much weight as possible whilst meeting the federation standards. So we are just trying to get the biggest total possible, which is going to obviously increase our chances to win. So yeah, having a smaller range of motion is going to really help with that, especially if you're in a position where you maybe don't have the best leverages for bench, or you're up against people that are a lot shorter than you, maybe have shorter arms. It can just give you a little bit more of an advantage when maybe you wouldn't otherwise. And before you say it, no, it's not cheating because it is meeting the standards of our federation, and we are not the only sport that do bend the rules. My friend was very kind to actually research into this, and there are actually so many sports that do bend the rules a little bit, but it goes a lot more unnoticed, I think, because it's not so obvious. The second reason why is because it's genuinely safer to use an arch. By getting into that position, you're allowing your lats to take over and take a lot of pressure off of your shoulders. Because if you think about it, the muscles in the shoulder are a lot smaller than the big lat muscles that run down the side of your back, which is obviously gonna reduce your risk of injury, make it so you can lift more, and just generally make more sense. So hopefully that gives you an understanding of why. The second most frequent question was, does it hurt and is it safe? It shouldn't hurt, no. If it does hurt, you shouldn't be doing it. For me personally, this is a very natural position. I did gymnastics since a young child. My back does not struggle to get into this position at all. It does not feel uncomfortable. So it makes sense for me to use that in my competition press when it can have an advantage towards my overall total. To say it is 100% safe would be false, because with any exercise, you are at risk of injury. That is just the way that it goes. But generally, yes, this is a safe lift, and you are not putting lots of pressure on your back because the actual weight is not pressing down on the spine. It's actually being held through your shoulders and anchored through your shoulder blades and your glutes. The actual back doesn't change position during the press, so there is no actual changing pressure on the spine. If performed incorrectly, you do increase your risk of injury, but generally, yes, this is a pretty safe technique. Why only women? Now, there's a simple answer for that, and that is that it's not only women. Loads of men use this too. Loads of really high up powerlifters. One that I actually have the pleasure of knowing is Owen Hubbard. He actually achieved multiple world records using this technique, and it is widely used by both women and men. The reason that you're maybe seeing it more with women is because we tend to have more flexibility, so getting into that position is potentially easier. I know a lot of the time powerlifters have a background in gymnastics, so their spine, like mine, is already used to being in that position, which means they can get a more pronounced arch. But to say that it's just women doing this is completely unfair to say. No, it works for both men and women and is super effective when used correctly. Fourth question, does it comply with the new IPF rules? So for anyone that doesn't know, at the beginning of this year, the IPF introduced a new elbow rule to standardize this technique. The new rule states that the elbow must come down with the mid-shoulder at the paused position on the chest. So yes, in my case, this is a good lift. I've competed 3 times this year and achieved good lifts using this technique in all of those competitions. The next question is quite an interesting one. Why do we use it outside of competition? The main one is just practice. I know people like to think that this is actually making it easier, but this is a really technical technique, and getting enough practice in can really mean that we can perfect the lift and do it right. We need the exposure constantly in able to get better, and we don't want to be getting to the platform on the day and just completely changing our technique, because you will not have perfected that lift and you are going to be missing out on valuable kilograms to your total, which is obviously the whole aim. Not only that, but you also don't want to be chopping and changing your technique all the time. You're actually going to increase your risk of injury by doing so. Just some food for thought, but any major changes to form, you should be introducing over a longer period of time. You do not want to be chopping and changing and only doing a certain lift in a competition standard. You need to be practicing that all year round to an extent. Then for the final question, do I do any high range of motion exercises? The answer to this is yes. I do a lot of high range of motion exercises, such as Larsen press, where my arch is reduced and I've got no leg drive, and dumbbell press, where I have very minimal arch, which actually allows the upper body and chest muscles to get a little bit more activation. But with that being said, you can still build muscle with an arching technique. Albeit my arch is quite big, but that doesn't mean that I am not building my chest muscles whilst using that. In fact, because I'm able to load more weight using that technique, arguably I'm giving my muscles more stimulus to grow by lifting a heavier weight than I would if I was solely relying on my shoulders. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope it's helped to enlighten you in why we use such an interesting technique in powerlifting. I've dropped some studies below in the description box as well, if anyone would like to look into more of the science. I've also linked a really interesting video where some very highly knowledgeable professionals have also given their insight, as well as the IPF Rule Book for anyone who would like to have a better understanding of what our standards of our federation are. And if anyone's got any more genuine questions, I would love to answer them, so drop them in the comment section below. But thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.